of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to welcome Tammy in. Hello, how are you, Tammy?
Good, how are you?
Thank you for spending another evening with us.
No, thank you for inviting me back.
And I'm not going to apologize for anything I say and how tough we're going to be on you, okay?
Okay, it's tough. I'm ready.
Okay.
That's what
And
we
you want
want.
me in here or over here?
Right there's good. We're on TV,
Okay.
just to let you know that. We are bringing you back as the only candidate we've asked to return.
Okay.
We feel that the job that we have open is an extremely important position. We cannot afford a mistake.
Okay.
We cannot. And so we're going to ask you a whole bunch of different questions and try to drill down and identify your strengths, your weaknesses, because we need to be sure. We need to be sure whatever candidate we choose, we need to be as certain as we can through this process. So John, do you want to make a comment or have any ask the first question?
Sure. Yeah, I can jump right into the questions. So as the new town administrator, how would you evaluate the current structure, effectiveness, and efficiencies of the various town departments? And how would you approach making any changes you believe were necessary? How would you evaluate departments delivering services to the town?
Well, I will say that I did a lot of homework within the last few days. I did look over your audit that you did have. So with that being said, with the departments, there's a lot of work that would need to be done. First and foremost, I'd have to talk with each department head and get to know exactly where they are and what they are doing. The treasurer, collector, the accountant. I noticed there were a lot of things that were in here, and we would need to get on the same page. Things need to be going in the right direction, not the wrong direction. So with that being said, I believe we need to have some policies in place. I did look back and I did notice that you had 2019, you had excuse me, financial policies manual that was done. And do you use those policies?
I would say no.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to say no categorically. I would say some of them are inching along, but as far as we're a relatively new board, and I would say that we have not spent a lot of time providing a lot of direction, and we have not had the people that we've had, in the position you're interviewing for, we've had like 2 or 3 at least in the last probably 4 years. So we know it's a difficult job. I'm familiar with that.
Yes.
It's very detailed.
I actually printed the whole thing. I have it.
Yeah, it's very detailed.
I read it all,
And
so.
when I first came on board, I spent a little time working through that, and I said, and then after coming to several meetings, I said, well, we don't do any of it.
Okay.
Okay, we don't focus on it. The Budget and Finance Committee doesn't focus on it. So I would say that is one of the things that, obviously we need to look at in the departments that we have. How is our financial program going and who's managing it and all of that sort of thing.
So I found some great information in here, and there was policies that were actually written. I just took the first 3 out of my binder over here, but, for the policies, they had what you're supposed to do, like in the treasurer collector's office, how we're supposed to make sure you're balanced on time, debits and credits, everything needs to be equal. So that's the first thing that I would definitely do, is I'd want to meet with each one individually, find out where they're at, and start getting some policies into play and making sure that we are going in the right direction. There was another question. What was the other one you asked me?
Yep. How would you evaluate the departments delivering services to the town?
That's a very good question. So it's very important that we answer all the questions that the town has, the residents. I make sure that I knew what was going on within the town, and I would make sure to ask them on a daily basis, is there any questions, anything I need to know? Obviously, my door being open door policy to anyone that was coming in to see me. And I want to know all the residents as well. So I'd make sure that I was also always available. Because you're right, it's a very hard job, and you need to make sure you're available for these people, for the community, and the employees. It's all it's a big task, and something that's important.
You've isolated a few areas of concern just looking at our audit reports, and I commend you for looking at our audit reports. I think that's a good thing.
Yes, Buzz had sent it to me.
Obviously, then, okay, some people are not going to be happy when you unroll the audit report and you say, hey, how come this is happening in your department? Because these are pretty much straightforward problems and, oversights. And they say, well, this is the way we've done it forever and it's no big deal.
Well, I can say to you, it is a very big deal, and unfortunately, on their end, they have to follow these rules and regulations, because I know as a town accountant with an auditor that comes into my department, I make sure all my i's and t's are dotted and crossed. And if my town administrator came to me and was like, why is this like this? Like, rest assured, I'm gonna make sure to fix it. And I would expect that same thing with the
But your
employees.
expectations aren't necessarily my expectations as an employee. So how do you work with me if I'm the person who you feel needs to be a little more conscious of, I don't know, time frames or whatever? How do you work with me when I seem resistant?
I would go down and I would sit with you if I had to and make sure the job got done. It needs to get done. Everyone has a job we have to do here. We have to get it done. And if not, then I guess there's going to be issues. I know there's elected and appointed officials, and I did even try to look that up. I noticed treasurer collector. I wanted to ask that question because I went to the DLS and I wanted to see who was elected and who was appointed. And I did notice that the clerk was elected 2022 to 2025. And I looked at the treasurer.
He's appointed by the board.
He is appointed. So when I had looked at that, 2022 to 2025 is in there right now. So it's 3 years. That's sometimes statutory. That's usually what they usually have on there anyways. So with that being said, then they would be under the select board, which is a good thing. So that is something they would have to follow. And unfortunately, if they didn't follow, there'd be consequences that would have to be paid.
When you say consequences, how do you give consequences and still have that person amenable to working along with you?
Well, I have done many times in the past when I worked at a bank. We had employees that I had to write up. I had to do written warnings. And with that being said, I would go ahead and I would give we always had to have a witness with us when we went ahead and did it. You never do anything like that alone. And I would go ahead and I'd give them the written warning. And I would ask them, maybe they need education. Maybe they're not sure as to what they're doing. So that's our responsibility to help them, to guide them. We want to make sure that they're doing the best that they can and they have all the tools they need to, to succeed in their occupation, right? We're not trying to make anyone feel. We want to make sure that they're going forward and they're understanding. They might not understand. Maybe they're new to the job. I also saw that there was turnover when I was reading the report. It's important that they know the education. I was new at the bank and I was new as an assessor. I was new as town accountant. I had education. It's very important to get that education. Obviously, if they maybe sometimes it just doesn't link. Maybe you need a new person. If that has to happen, then that has to happen. Either way, we all have a job we have to do for our community. And we need to make sure that that is getting done.
You've written evaluations for personnel?
Oh, I've done evaluations, I've done written warnings, yes. In the banking industry, yes, I have. I was the branch administrator, assistant vice president, so that was a big part of my job. Policies and procedures were also a big part of my job, and auditing. It was actually my previous boss used to say, Tammy, you'd make a great auditor. Because I was, I was on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm interested in what are the most important qualities when you seek when hiring a town employee, and how would you ensure the applicant has them, and at what point do you engage the select board and bring hiring decisions?
So for qualities that I would look for is, I would look for someone who is a hard worker, someone that isn't afraid to put in the hard work to make sure the job gets done, someone that is loyal, trustworthy, and someone who's genuine. Like, I like genuine. I think you can find that out through previous employers, to do their background checks, find out who they are, how do they get along with other people. It's very important. And even how they interact with, per se, during the interview process, how are they acting, how, I hate to say this, but aura, how's your aura with other people, I have a big, he's laughing, but it's true, that's how I feel, it's very important.
Could you talk a little bit about, in the audit, it just speaks about the fact that we've got, several different financial management systems that sort of don't talk to one another.
Yes,
And that would be something that the board in the past has, made overtures to the appropriate personnel and said, we really got to get on this. And we looked at various systems. We decided to go Vadar. And then it became just this stalled thing. Well, we can't do it until W-2s are done. Well, we can't do it when we're rolling over, the fiscal year. And so it's just really not been something that has gained any traction. And every year we get, an audit
Yes.
statement about it.
Yes.
And people say, well, I'm using X and that's just as good. I'm using Y and that's just as good. Obviously, there must be something to this comment that the auditors come in that they consistently make.
Yes.
What would you do in order to sort of help and work with the group that needs, to make this change?
I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what the town of Warren did and how we incorporated it, and then I'll tell you what I would do. We just returned to Vadar. I was in LBA. It's old, it's an old system. We had our treasurer who was doing the Excel side, and then our collector, we have it actually split out, but the collector was doing another, I think it was points software. Not 100%, so don't mark me 100% on that, but I want to say that's what hers was. With that being said, we all got together, we watched UMIS, Vadar, and there was one other one, I can't remember the other name.
Munis you couldn't afford, neither could we.
We couldn't.
I told you that.
That's exactly, you're right, we could not afford it. With that being said, we all ended up going with Vadar. We did actually end up getting a community compact IT grant, which is something you can get every 2 years for certain, for us it was for Vadar, so we used it for Vadar. We jumped right into it. I didn't have any training actually, and July 1st, June 29th is when I got my Vadar system actually hooked up to my system, and July 1st is when I had to do, so I have to do payroll. As you know, June 30th is my cutoff, July 1st, and I had to do payroll for July 1st. I was, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I just called and I said, hi, they're very great customer service. I just called them and they walked me right through it. I was able to get my payroll done, and I started using that system because you want to start it. To me, you want to start your system at the beginning of a fiscal year, because if you don't, you're going to have all these systems in combination with each other. I would have had my LBA, if I had started my Vadar after all my training, I would have had that in September, October, whenever they were going to do it. So for all of us, we had all decided to just do it right July 1st when our fiscal year started. I believe that was the best bet. They're very good at training. I mean, I could call them anytime, and they're really good.
So you were sort of working with Vadar on the new fiscal year, and cleaning up previous fiscal year on 3 different settings.
Yes, LBA, I'm still
That must
yeah.
have been a very long 3 or 4 months.
It has actually, because I'm still closing up my books we're trying to get free cash certified, which actually got all my stuff finally all in. So yes, I'm doing that, and even with the treasurer, they've been doing the sewer, the tax title. She's been doing all that stuff on top of doing post and cash reconciliations. Then I have our collector over here who's doing all the refunds and has to go in. The nice thing about Vadar though is it literally goes in, it talks to each other. So the assessors go ahead and they commit it over to the tax collector. The tax collector then goes ahead and sends the refunds just come right to me, but she sends it over to the treasurer. Treasurer sends it up to me. I go ahead and I can just, has like a little thing on the bottom that says posting pendables, and I can click on it, automatically goes right over to my batch. Obviously I check everything I do because I don't take anyone's word. I look at everything, make sure it's all there. I make sure I have all my documents. I will not touch anything unless I have a document to go with it. But with that being said, it's been 100% easier. My LBA used to have to put in every single person and do a refund, and it would take me a long, long time. This one I just get to do the batches, I get to double check. So with that being said, I guess I would say, maybe it's hard right now, and I know we're going to have a lot of time and energy putting into it, but in the long haul, it is absolutely going to pay off. Even though the system, it's tough right now because we're all working in different systems. Well, the treasurer, she has the Excel, I have my LBA. Even though we have all that, in the long haul, it is 100% worth it, because at the end of the year, I'm going to be able to push a button and my Schedule A is going to come up. Where right now, I have to take all my revenues, I have to take all my expenditures, all my federal, state, all my lines, and I have to separate them all out, put them into DLS, and then I have to, it's a lot of paperwork. It's probably a good 30 pages that I have. I mean, there's a ton. You must have seen Schedule A with like all the accounting and stuff that you have to do, the balance submission list, and then I have to do tax rate recap. I don't do all of it. I only do page 3 of it, and then I look over it with the clerk on page 4. Assessors to the first page.
So could I really define or describe your position as sort of the CFO in Warren? The chief financial officer managing these other people, or are you their equals, or?
I'm gonna say I'm their equals.
Okay.
I don't manage anyone. I have no problem though going to a certain department head and saying, I need this, or if somebody, I look over every vendor warrant, and there's been times when I've had to go to departments and I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not spending the town's money on a coffee pot. Either, you can return it, or you can pay for it out of your own pocket. I have to do that. I have to look over everything, whether it's the police department, fire department, sewer department, any department has I have any issues, I go directly to them myself and I handle it. And if I have any issues, I do go to the town admin. But usually they're very,
Have you, been at a town meeting, or, for example, I think one of the questions is, in most communities, there's a vocal group of folks from time to time, and they can impact the operations of potentially the morale of departments or individual employees. How do you deal with this kind of public, sort of interference maybe, or they're not thinking they're interfering, but they are really making it impossible for one of the departments to function well? They have strong opinions. They come and they're, in your office and they're saying, I want you to do something with employee A. I've had it with him, or her. I've called her 15 times and she never returns a call to me. And when I see them on the street, they go, oh yeah, I'll get to you. And then when the selectmen talk with that person, the person says, I call them back. That's nonsense. How do you deal with that?
talking with an employee doing this to a
Employee doing this to a group of people who might, have an issue that they think isn't being addressed, so they call, I don't know, Susie Jones, and say, Susie Jones, you're in charge of this, why isn't this fixed? And Susie Jones never returns a call, never sends back an email to answer a specific question or concern. So how do you deal with that employee?
Are they appointed or elected?
They're, appointed by you.
Okay, if
They're not
they're
elected.
appointed,
Yeah.
I would definitely call them up to my office and I would ask what's going on. I'd want to hear their side and I'd want to see what exactly is going on. And I would ask, is there a problem?
Mhm.
What can we do to take care of this problem if it's something that, I'd also I'd want to talk with the customer too as well
Mhm.
to see what was going on. I'd want to
Mhm.
know exactly verbatim what was going on, because you have to get all the facts.
Mhm.
There's always 2 sides to every story,
Mhm.
but I'd want to get both sides, and then I would address it and,
Mhm.
go
How would
with
you address
don'ts.
it?
I would call each person and I would want to know.
But I say to you, I've called them back, and they say, the customer says, that has never happened, they never called me back. I've asked them 3-4 times, to, I don't know, fix whatever, and I don't get called back. And I had meetings, I'm supposed to have a meeting with them, and they don't show up for the meeting. So I don't care what he or she tells you, that's not true.
Well, then if I had to literally go down there and do it with them, then I would. Then we would call them back together
Mhm.
and get an answer and figure out the problem,
Mhm.
because you can't do, hearsay. I
Mhm.
want to hear it, I want to see it. If I have
Mhm.
to do it with them, I will.
Okay. But consistently, and when you hear it, you say, our employee's really wrong. What do you do?
Our employees are really wrong?
Yeah, the person who told you all of this, after you see him in action, you say, oh boy, she was just out of line, what she said to that public, person.
Again, I can't make someone feel the way they feel, right? So I can't, maybe that person on the outside felt like that, and maybe our employee felt that way. So I wouldn't take sides. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's fair. So for me to say, you're the person that's wrong, or you're the person that's wrong, I don't feel like that is ethically fair. I think I would need to hear both sides of the story, and and I would get the facts, and again, I can't make them feel how they feel, only, you know, I was once told this, only I can make myself feel the way I feel. No, I don't wanna upset a town resident, and no, I don't wanna really upset an employee either, but if they're doing wrong, then I need to address that situation, right? So I would definitely address it. I would definitely understand where that, town citizens coming from as well, like it's all important to me. So I guess I'd have to know more about the situation, and what exactly is the problem, besides them saying hi or not calling back. If they're not calling back, I'm gonna go down and call them with them and see where is the problem. Is it really, you know, are they having a bad day? Maybe the employee's having a bad day, maybe the customer's having, or the person in the community's having a bad day. What's going on? I really need to get more information about this so we can get down to the bottom of things and really find out the nit-grit of what's going on. I think that's important.
Okay.
I think it's important to be fair to everybody though,
Mhm.
employees and the citizens.
Mhm. John?
So let's see. So, if a long-term employee was accused of an ethics violation, what steps would you take upon learning of the complaint? And how would you approach that employee?
If they were doing an ethics,
Yeah, if they were
Accused.
accused of an ethics violation.
well, I would make sure that they took their ethic training first off. That's
Mhm.
important. You have to do that every 2 years. I would definitely have a talk with them because, like I told you, ethics is very important to me. So I would get down to the nit-grit of it and find out exactly what was going on.
Would you call the, shall we say, the counsel, the lawyer of the day?
Probably yes, if I had to, get to the right answer.
Mhm.
Absolutely, that's what town council is.
Yeah.
They are
Well-
here for that.
Well, I mean, there's a lawyer of the day also that serves on the ethics
Yes,
commission.
I'm familiar with that. I've
Okay,
actually had to write
And
them a
the,
few
and you have an
times.
IG, I'm guessing you're very familiar with procurement, so you know
Yes.
that there's a lot of nuts and bolts to that
Oh,
operation.
absolutely, yes, yes. And I have definitely called the, emailed the DLS lawyer of the day, as you want to call it,
Mhm,
a couple times on my end, just to make sure that I was doing my, my side correctly.
mhm.
And even procurement, I might say too, that I've even called the helpline. They have a Chapter 30B helpline too
Yep.
that you can call.
Yep.
And I've called and, you know, get down to what I need to do to make sure I'm doing it right, posting it right, because if you don't post it right, it's done, you better restart it.
Mhm. It takes a long time.
It does.
Um,
does.
Mark?
Well, a lot of these questions actually are kind of running into each other, you know
Mhm,
what I
yeah.
mean? So, I don't know, can you describe the process you envision for working with the select board to set goals and objectives? How would you envision the overall relationship with the board will work?
Well, I believe that my duty as a town administrator is to make sure that all information is being brought to the select board. What you ask me is what I'm gonna get done. You say to me, Tammy, you need this and that, find out the answers, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna find those answers out for you. I'm gonna get factual information, I'm not just gonna come and bring an opinion. I wanna make sure that everything's being done correctly, and keep you updated with everything that's going on within the building, within the police, within all departments, everyone.
Are you ever gonna go home? 'Cause if
Yeah.
you,
You know what, I'm that girl that, until my job gets done, I don't mind. I'm a hard worker, I don't mind. You know, both my girls, like I told you, they're
Grown.
grown, they're.
On their own.
Yeah, they're, you know, in college, one's in college, well, I told you one's a nurse now, and honestly, my husband's at home, but he's busy too, so that's, you know, I like to finish what I start.
next year, we're gonna be negotiating another cable contract with Spectrum,
Mhm.
with absolutely no power, because there's nobody else who services our community.
Yeah.
So they have sort of a monopoly. We have some 90 homes that still have no service,
Oh, wow.
and we've been working very hard to try to work with Spectrum to get that service available to them.
Okay.
And of course, the money that they want us to be able to pay for that is really pretty extraordinary. What is your experience with working with cable companies or the expansion of cable? And I'm not saying you should have had any, I don't know, do you have any?
I don't have any experience in regards to that.
Okay.
But I will tell you that I did a lot of homework. for this interview,
Mhm.
and I did look up like grants and stuff, and I do know that, I'm not sure if it would pertain to, this, I'd have to look more into it.
Mhm.
Just give me a second, let me just find my notes, 'cause I did do a lot of, looking up things. And grants was one of the wonderful things that was really on my list because of the community, compact IT grant. I think that would be a great
Mhm.
one for the town of Barre. They had there's a municipal fiber internet broadband infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I was thinking,
Mhm.
I'm not sure, I would have to see more about it and see what it entails, because when you do a grant, you need to make sure that you are following everything. It's like procurement, you have to make sure you're following everything to a T. And if you have anything that's left over, you have to either send it back, or if you have another need, maybe you could use it for something else that's close to it. You could always contact where the grant is coming from and ask permission. I'll just give you an example for our compact IT grant that we have. For Vadar Systems, we have a surplus of $3,000, and we are gonna see if we can use it to buy a laptop. And we've actually have already gone through trying to get the permission. I believe the permission has already been approved for us to get it, because it's an IT, laptop's IT, so, and it can be used for the town's purposes. It's gonna be for the town administrator, actually. And that is something that you have to do with that. But I was thinking of you, I actually looked back at some of your,
Selectmen's meetings?
yes.
You poor thing, you've been doing
I've
that?
been really studying hard, looking at everything. This is what I've been doing. And I did notice that that was mentioned on one of the meetings. I can't remember.
Only
which
one?
I sporadically just picked a few, and that happened to be one that I had picked, so, yeah, that was one that I had looked at, so.
Well, I would just piggybacking on that one, because I actually had a question for you about grant programs. And I know you'd mentioned before an MIAA grant in the last interview.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
and so I just kind of want to cut to the underlying part of that one, though. What would you do to expand your knowledge of grants that might benefit Barre?
Actually, I've been actually looking at grants, even before the town administrator came, I used to try to see what's out there for grants and stuff like that. I mean, I could only do so much, I wasn't at that part, but, basically you have to go ahead, there's a portal, I have that written down too, there's a place where you can go and you can get state grants, and you have to sign up for it, basically sign your life. And you'll see a bunch of grants that will come through. You have to go ahead, you might not get it the first time, you might get denied, but you keep trying, and sooner or later, hopefully you get them. And for certain things, there's also even some grants out there for roads and infrastructure. There's stuff out there for police. I know the police do a lot of grants. We have them for fire, like I said, MIA. We did our kitchen. So there's so much out there for us to take and, bring it into the town. That's a huge way to bring in
Mhm.
some revenue for us to
Mhm.
get things done. And
Have you done anything with any regional planning organizations? I know that might be a little separate from what you've done.
so regional planning,
Like, just for road grants, typically, things along those lines, but also, anything.
so CDPG, I think I mentioned that I do. I haven't. I'm involved by accounting. If
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the procurement part of it,
Right.
So CDBG grants, we're doing like Prospect and School Street right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not in it. Do I know about it and what needs to get done on my accounting end? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Chris Dunphy, he's actually the one that.
Oh, yeah,
is-
he's been helping us as well.
Yeah, he knows me
Yeah.
actually
Oh,
really
great.
well. So, actually saw him last week. He
Nice.
was there. So he's even helped with some of the procurement that I've done, like with other things and as well. So like I said, I know of it. Do I
Mhm.
know? And I'm not going to sit here and say that I do, because I don't. But I do know of it.
Mhm.
You have those contacts within CMRPC to get that understanding.
Absolutely. And I'm obviously Chapter 90.
Yeah.
I saw that was another thing in here, but
Mhm.
I even contacted, because I wanted to know more about Chapter 90, being the inquisitive mind that I was, with Town of Warren, actually nothing to do with this. And I had asked, I was like, I got the contact, I got all the information, and I contacted him, because I never received, being the accountant, I was like, why don't I ever receive anything? And the select board actually receives it. So I wanted to start receiving it. And I did find out a lot about it, and September 30th is the cut line. As long
Mhm.
as you have it submitted by that time, doesn't mean you necessarily have to have the funds in at that time, you just have to have it submitted.
Mhm.
And once it's submitted, as long as you put that when you're doing your reports, when you're doing your free cash certification, you won't get hit for free cash, because that's the last thing you want is to get hit with $500,000, right? I know. You're not the only one, though, all towns, it's actually in a DLS bulletin about that. So I was on it, I was making sure, this year, I was making sure that it was all in, it was submitted. Select board, I sign off on what I do, and then it goes to the select board, our highway surveyor, he usually signs first, then I sign, then the select board signs. And then I have to depend on them to submit it, so it wasn't just depending, I was making sure.
Yeah.
So I called, and I even asked for emails, and I got everything I needed, so I'm 100% positive that everything was done. And needless to say, I'm not getting hit on my free cash, 500,000, so. Oh, and also my grants, I also, I always, or before I close, before 6:30, I make sure that everything, I'll look at all the grants, and anything that has a deficit, I will write a letter, and I will let whether it be the police, fire, whomever, I always make a letter signing it, saying that this was paid, because they're reimbursement grants. So
Right.
that way we don't get hit, otherwise we get hit with that too.
Right, right.
So if we're a deficit on any of that, we would get hit with that too. And I know you mentioned grants, we actually have a Green Communities grant. I also saw another one of your
My whining and
meetings.
complaining.
No, it was about the schools and
Yeah.
the light bulbs or whatnot,
Yep.
but I had watched that. Like I said, I randomly picked them, so. And Green Communities, that's one we actually have right now for Warren Community Elementary School, and we
Mhm.
actually, it's $195,000 from the state, and it's a $395,000 project. But it's nice because the school's gonna, get some energy saving, lighting in the school district, which I think is great.
Talk to me about not your personal, but the relationship that Warren has with the Quabog Regional School District. And this year, I guess you had some entertaining times. And
Yes,
where
we
you
did.
where you needed it, to get involved in a district-wide meeting. You had an interim superintendent who was from the municipal side, had no idea what it was like to be in a region, could not believe she even had to go to a town meeting, let alone actually speak and, defend a budget. But at any rate, I think he finally worked out. I
did.
would
It
say
worked
that
out.
probably Warren has been, and West Brookfield, they have agreed to disagree on numbers of occasions.
Yes.
And so when if you're the successful candidate here, you have 5 towns.
Mhm.
So, the opportunity for 1 or 2 falling out of step is probably pretty, scary. And so what was your role, or did you have a role with the finance management or looking at, how the assessments?
My numbers,
Yeah.
So my role as town accountant, the town administrator had came to me, he had asked me to, so obviously the state gives us so much
Mhm.
for the school districts. And above
Minimum.
minimum, yep. He had asked me to see what our we just did an estimation,
Mhm.
so I did a spreadsheet as to what if we gave them
Mhm. X.
110,000,
Mhm.
600,000, 1.2 million, which I believe is what
They-
originally were asking for. So I just did my spreadsheet up, I took in everything and came down with a number as to an estimation as to how much the tax rate would go up. Again, I was using the prior fiscal year, because I don't know what the fiscal year at that point, is going to be. So he did bring that to everyone's attention, and that's the part that I played in it.
Okay.
I did look over a lot of
So you're
the
familiar,
numbers.
though, with minimum local contribution, net
Yes.
school spending,
Yes, I am.
all of that?
Oh, yes, I am.
Intrigue. Okay. Well, that's important.
It is very important,
you are
and honestly, I know
50% of
I
your
do-
budget is going to
Right.
minimum local
Right,
contribution.
you have an operational budget, and
Right.
you're right, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And, I was gonna say on that end. Oh, that's what I was gonna say, communication I know has gotten much better between the schools district and the town, so hopefully this year, things will go better.
Well, the interesting thing, I was working with legislators this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and after lots of whining, complaining, they have put, and will announce tomorrow, there's $15 million that are going to go to rural schools.
Wow,
This district has rural schools,
nice.
and all will qualify for something.
Oh, that's great.
The major focus of that, obviously, is the opportunity to relieve the municipality of some of the burden.
That's nice.
Yes, we'll have even more things for kids, but we'll also have more things for the, other side of the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of that was labor intensive with senators, representatives, and so forth. Tell
That's
me,
great news.
tell me what your role has been, or have you ever had the opportunity to work with legislators and push them along to get something that the town needed?
That I can't say I have had any
Okay.
experience with. I've seen in action my town administrator. He goes, I wish I could remember exactly what him and the police had got. As you know, the town of Warren is doing a feasibility study for a new police department. I did do the procurement part of it.
You mean a building?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, again, don't mark me 100%. So I know him and the police, the chief of police.
Yeah,
had
looking
gone.
for the grant.
Yeah, they'd gone, and I guess there was some kind of hearing about giving more funds to the communities.
Right, to build municipal buildings.
That's.
Yeah, and I know that
Yes.
previous Senator Goldie is now the director of rural affairs, and she is well-known in the town of Barre.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
That's
and so
nice.
we do spend lots of time having conversations with the right legislators.
Excellent.
So we need a new fire station desperately,
Mhm.
and, public safety fire building. And we've done a feasibility study.
That's good.
It's a very expensive,
Mhm.
but we would never be able to do it without grants.
Exactly.
And so obviously the new town administrator would have on his or her plate, make money, get money, make us a green community, a million different things.
Absolutely.
And, I want to be very honest with you. What we worry about is you can do the nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
I don't worry about that. I worry about some of the politics.
Mhm.
I worry about your ability to manage some people who for a long time really haven't had anybody in the department managing them. And so now they'll go, what? We have a new person doing what? They're asking me to do what? They're looking at the audit report and changing my world? What? Do you think I'm being fair about that?
I think you
And I'm not saying,
nailed it.
I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying that they work really hard. And when somebody works really hard, and then you sit back and you go, yeah, but the auditor said you maybe should do this, and you go, they don't, so you have to be cautious with the way in which you kind of represent change.
I
But-
always say
but cha-
approach.
But change is absolutely necessary.
Mhm.
And change for change's sake, no, but change for, improving the quality of the life of the employees, but also the life of the community.
Absolutely.
And this is not an easy job, and I worry, whomever gets this position, I worry that the demands on this person to fix stuff and to make stuff different and better is pretty immense.
Well, I will tell you, I understand your concern, absolutely. I am very resilient, though. I am very strong, believe it or not. When I first started as, for example, I'm just going to give you another example. That's okay.
Absolutely.
When I was the AVP branch administrator, and I had gone into the bank, and I'll never forget my first time, and I'm going to talk about auditing. My boss had said to me, okay, Tammy, you need to go audit all these branches. And I was like, seriously? Like, I gotta go and audit like the employees? I was scared about it. I was like, oh no, what are they gonna, but you know what? I did great at it. I did an amazing job, and they went in and they didn't want me to deal with their books and look at their auditing books, but you know what? I had to do it. That was my job, right? That's my job. My boss asked me to do that, and I was doing that. And I did do it. And I went in, and I would never leave without at least finding at least one finding. I worked and worked and worked hard until I finally found it, just because I wanted them to be on their game. And, but within time, they knew Tammy Martin was coming down, and she was going to do an audit on our branches. And I will tell you, within the time that I did it, the very first time I started there, we did get one audit, but then I started doing audits, and we hadn't gotten any audits. So. with
Your
me-
management letters were clean.
They were. When I first started there, though, this is on me too. This is how terrible is this. When I first started there on my branch, I had gotten an audit finding because I didn't have dual signature, and I was like, "What?" And needless to say, that's when my boss said to me, "You need to go to all the branches, and now you need to make sure everything's all to par." And I did. And you know what? We didn't get any findings, and I was really proud of myself for that. And when an auditor came out to our branches, I was the first one there. I went to every branch. And I would deal with the auditors with the branch manager or on my own, because I knew the branches. I did each and every audit for all the branches. I did it like 3 times a year for each branch, so.
And
Talk to me.
How did you establish like relationship and trust with those branch managers as you were auditing them and overseeing that?
It takes time. You know, it doesn't just come. You know, you're not just gonna have instant like, oh, I'm gonna trust you because you're Tammy. That's not gonna happen. It takes time to build those relationships, and you know, I always say this, and I mean this. It's in your approach. It's how you act. I mean, I'm not gonna ever belittle somebody. I'm not gonna be condescending. That's not me. That's not my personality at all. I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be truthful, and I'm gonna get facts, like I told you. That's important to me. My character is important to me, how I am. And I want to be that role model for them, you know? Like, I'm going to work with you. If I have to open up a drawer being a manager, and I did, I'd open a drawer and I'd be a teller. I didn't care. Whatever I had to do it with you, I would do it with you. It didn't matter to me to get the job done, you know? There was times when my staff would call me, this happened to me. I was obviously in charge of all the branches, and one of my, it was on a Saturday, so you can imagine, Saturday the power went out. So we had to run with no drawers open, but I didn't want to let my, I still did it with the customers coming in. I got the approval from my boss, and she let me do it. And we went ahead and did it. We couldn't take in any cash because everything was closed, but we did take in checks or anything else we could do, like that matter. I would call other branches, but I got in there and I helped them. I guess my whole point is that I got in there and I got my feet with them. I got right in there. I didn't make them do it themselves. I did not answer, I answered my phone. It was a Saturday. I wasn't supposed to work, but I didn't care. My job was to make sure that those branches are covered, and those customers that come to our branch are getting waited on regardless. So I think by earning, I guess my answer is by earning trust, you have to be part of them. You have to be part of their team. You have to work with them. You have to have humility. You have to have empathy. You need to be able to put yourself in their shoes, understand where they're coming from. It's so important. What if someone's having a bad day or something, and be that listening ear. It's not that hard to take time out to listen to that employee, or even a resident if they're having a hard day and they want to get something done and they come in and they're like rah 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 rah. I dealt with that all the time in the branches. I've had customers come in and say, "What is this? Why you asked me for this?" Come on in, let's talk. I'd shut the door and I'd sit down and I'd sit and talk with them. And believe it or not, if you approach, if you're kind, and you're not screaming and yelling back at anybody, you will earn their trust. You will earn their respect, and they will understand where everybody's coming from.
If you could pick anybody in your past career that you would say, in order to prove what I'm telling you is true, you should call blankety blank.
My previous employer, I think I gave you her number.
What's her, I forget her position.
She was my boss for 16 years. She was the retail vice president, Patricia, that's right?
Yeah, we have that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then with these branches, did you do any sort of goal setting with them? Either for the branches or for professional development for the managers or anything along those lines? And if you did, what did that look like?
All right, so every year, we had a yearly evaluation. They would write an evaluation on themselves, and I would have so many that my previous boss would give me to do. And then we would go over and look at them together. I'm trying to think if we did them together or whatever. We'd go over them together with them. And so I would write up employee evaluations. The other thing I would do is I would do training with our branch managers. And then from there, the branch managers would do training with their employees. I'd make them do signed sheets, because you want to make sure. That's right, you want to make sure like the policies are being done correctly, and that I know that all the staff is being trained 100%. So with that being said, that is how we did it. And I believe we had monthly meetings back then. It was a while ago, but I believe we had monthly meetings, and we'd pick a couple policies, and sometimes we would have another branch manager. Maybe you're going to do Reg CC and you're going to do Reg D, and we're going to talk about it and have an open conversation with the branch managers, and they're going to go down and have those employees, and they're going to train them. I also did training with the new hires that came in, like the new tellers that would come in. I would have training with them. I would make booklets. That's probably why I like binders so much. I'm a binder girl, sorry. I would make binders for my new employees, and I would go over everything, and we would sit and I would train them for 3 or 4 days, and then I would put them with the teller. The teller would go ahead and train them. I gotta say, I think it did a great job, because I think a lot of them did really well after I was done training them.
Okay, Tammy, I'm sure you've asked around about Barre, okay, from this person, that person, and then maybe people even from Barre. What did they caution you? Did they say, what, are you out of your mind applying for that job? Nobody stays in that job.
You know what, I can honestly say I haven't really asked anyone. I've been doing my own homework, as you know. I'm not really,
They haven't checked us out.
oh, I've checked you out. I've checked you out, like, and anything I could find on the, website, Town of Barre, what you're known for. And the good thing is you're known for being a very beautiful rural community.
We
I'll
are,
tell you that.
we are that, but
So I did
but
see
that we
that.
kind of got by accident.
Hey,
We
you
didn't earn it.
still got, you gotta own it though, you got it, right?
Absolutely.
So, I do love Barre, honestly. I grew up in North Brookfield, Spencer, I've been there, both towns, and honestly, Barre's always been a beautiful place. So, I only know what I know from, again, facts that I've seen and looked at myself.
What scares you about if you got this job?
You know, I'm not gonna say nothing, because I think it's everything, you know? It's exciting, it's a new change, and I find it actually motivating, you know? If anything probably scares me, is I wanna do a great job for you.
Mhm.
That's probably what scares me. I wanna do a great job for the community. I wanna make sure that I'm giving my 120%. I don't wanna fail.
How interested are you,
Scares me.
how
I don't
interested
wanna
are you
fail.
in walking in the Christmas Day parade? Not
There.
Christmas Day, but Christmas parade.
Ask Patty how good I am at walking in parades. I will be here at all your events. My girls too.
Greg, do you have any questions you'd like to
No, I
ask
don't.
or anything?
Not right now, I might have one at the
Okay,
end.
okay. I think we're getting close to the end.
I got like deadlines, time-sensitive things that adversely affect the financials in the town. How will you bird dog or keep your thumb on those when sometimes it just kind of lacks, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And they're important.
Yes, I will let you know. It's
How
funny
would
you say
you,
that.
how would you help them along?
So I'm gonna tell you what I do, and this is how I would help them along. And I do this, I make a to-do list, and because I have a lot of things thrown at me all the time. I know I'm the town accountant, but I help the town administrator with the procurement side. I mean, I do things all the time. I do Cory checks, or I'll help with physicals,
Okay.
whatever. I'm constantly doing something. So with that being said, I literally have a to-do list, and I call it my prioritizing to-do list, and I will put on, actually have one for tomorrow. I will put on my most important things that I have to get done,
Mhm.
and I think that's important for all. I mean, obviously, I know, for example, town accountants, you need to make sure everything's in by June 30th, so I'm not gonna wait till June 30th to go ask, right? I'm gonna make sure that things are getting done probably by like March, April, let's see where we're at. You know, I wanna make sure everything's done. You need to get it in. It needs to, that's about when I start looking at all my stuff.
So Mark says they're very, these are time sensitive and really important for the town. I just don't do it.
I'm gonna go do it with you if I have to.
But I don't even welcome you into my office. In fact, you won't find me there because I'm doing other stuff, you know?
Then maybe they should be working for the town of Barre if
Okay.
it's not that important to them, right?
Well, I just know that these things happen in small towns.
Mhm.
I'm not saying they're gonna happen in Barre, they may not, but that's my worry, is that you haven't had, you certainly convinced me you've had a lot more of sort of supervisory experience than I thought,
Mhm.
okay? I think you bring tremendous attention to detail, which is absolutely critical in this community, in any community. Attention to detail, absolutely, and because what you've got is 3 part-timers here, right? Relatively new at this job,
Very.
I mean, right?
I'd say we're all
Relatively
very new.
Very.
And not that we're not committed. We have different experiences that we bring here. We're committed to doing the best we possibly can for the community, making it not only pretty, but pretty wonderful to live in, to be educated in. We have some wonderful quality programs here. Sometimes by accident, not design. That's worrisome. Well, I mean, don't you think like the library? we ended up with hiring just the right, the right director, and all of a sudden, it's not only a beautiful building, but we've got beautiful programs. I mean, if you want to go down there and get trade up a costume for Halloween, which I thought was amazing, that they have, like, they must have had 100, maybe more. And so if my 8-year-old grew out of his or her costume, I could go buy something, I could leave a new one there, the old one there. And so everything was all organized and so forth. So, I mean,
They started having sessions for teenagers to go play D&D. I was bummed I was too old for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have some wonderful things, okay, that are sort of in its infancy. They need support, they need coddling. We even have a new taxpayers association that, can provide, a different kind of venue for the public to get more information about the financial sides of what we do and why we do it. So we have a 250th, next year's be our 250th, and so, there's a committee that's been working very hard, all kinds of different events and so forth, trying to earn some money, blah, 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 trying to do some things so that September, is it 21st, I think? They have a big parade and other things, sort of organized. So the town's a hopping place. But it's been, sort of, we've gone through different managers because we haven't paid maybe enough money. We've gone through them because people decided they really rather go work directly with the Department of Revenue than sort of do, a town kind of job. So we're looking for somebody who really not only has the capacity, but has the energy, the enthusiasm, and the commitment to say, because I think it's going to be some tough days ahead. I don't think this is an easy job. I don't.
I agree with you.
Because I would tell you that Greg, who's been a wonderful, wonderful interim guy, right? I mean, Greg and I and the rest of the board and Sandy, okay, we're tromping around down in the boiler room in 8 inches of water on a rainy night, right? Looking at places where people have just said, "This is an empty room. Just throw stuff." Okay, and so. He's like an important guy. And we're saying to him, "Hey, Greg, help us clean out the dumpy room." And so my concern is, it has to be no job too big, no job too small, no job too dirty. Because we have so much physical work, as well as, work on our audit, work on our green community stuff. We have so much to do. And it's kind of, I think probably that's similar in most towns, there's a lot to do. But we need to get on the right path with a lot of energy and a lot of courage. Because sometimes the public doesn't like you and they make it known. Sometimes an employee doesn't like you and they make it known. And that goes for us too. I mean, we have to have, no, I'm not that we wouldn't do that, but we have to have the courage to say, no, we're gonna see this through. We're gonna make this change. We're gonna make this happen.
With so much going on, there needs to be a lot of prioritization, which it sounds like you do with your daily list, but to the point where you're gonna have to say no to department heads and probably have to say no to some of us up here with some of our ideas that come out of nowhere sometimes.
Greg?
I have a question. So in your essay, you wrote about onboarding and your onboarding plan. So could you describe for the board what your onboarding plan would be and what your role would be in that process?
What was the question again on that?
Question was about onboarding. So in your essay, you mentioned the onboarding plan. What would it be? So could you describe what your role would be in the onboarding plan if you were to be hired for this position?
Well, for a town administrator, the onboarding plan is obviously a very hard-working position. It's something that you need to make sure you are in the public's eye. You have to, I feel, lead by example. You have to be a team player, and I think I mentioned in a lot of that is, I did mention compassion and empathy, and you have to care about your employees and own humility. You have to own it. If you're wrong, made a mistake, own it. Don't lie. Admit it when you're wrong. That's like my biggest pet peeve. Like if you do something and it's not right, just own it.
And you would hopefully spread that kind of that ethic throughout the community if possible.
Absolutely, I believe you should own it. If you make an error, it's okay if you make an error. Just admit that you made the error. You're human, right? So that's important to me for the onboarding. And I also, I would also with your new hires, I know you had mentioned, welcoming packages and stuff like that, that's huge too. You need to, when someone comes in, you need to have an onboarding process on that end. That's what made me first thing you said, onboarding process, is you need to sit down with that employee, you need to go over their policies and procedures, the personnel bylaw. You need to make sure that, obviously, you did your core and your physical, that's important too. And all your information about this employee needs to be confidential. I don't know if you guys have that or not, but it needs to be in a central place. It needs, everything needs to be up to date. It needs to be all there. And if they have like physicals or anything like that, that also needs to be, but it has to be in a separate folder, not in the same situation together. So my own, and I would want to meet all the departments. I want to know, my first and foremost, at 30, 60, 90 days, people usually ask, my first thing is getting to know all the employees, all the department heads, the community. I want to know what the community is, our business owners. I do know Sam, so I watched I watched all the.
Sam's really the
tapes.
ex officio selectman.
That's me. It's important to know everybody, and I want to know where everybody's at. Where do I have to make sure that, this tells me a lot, but where do I have to make sure that there's issues, and what do I have to work on to make sure this is getting done? And I know you mentioned about, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, keep going.
I was gonna say, I know you mentioned about, you were worried about, like, I know there's strong personalities, I get that. And again, I'm gonna mention where my personnel is mostly, and that was in the banking industry. I actually had people, and this is true, this happened to me. There were two people that were working together, and they just would not get along. No matter what I said, I called them both into my office. I was like, listen, I don't understand what the problem is, and I discussed this with them. I told them, basically in the end all be all, I told them basically, you need to go out there and get along in that. And they, believe it or not, they ended up really listening in the end, because I had multiple conversations, and I was like.
Have you ever had to dismiss someone, like fire them?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. We had one incident. This one's, so when you wouldn't believe these stories, I should write a book. I was supervisor, the first week going into supervisor, this was again in my banking industry, when I worked in the bank, my very first week there. I don't know if you're familiar, but being in the bank, and you have to be familiar, obviously in a municipality too, you have to be familiar with red flags, what's going on. So my very first week there, I was getting to know the employees behind the line. I was watching people, seeing what their strengths and weaknesses were. It was very important to me. And there was this one employee that really stuck out, like she was, the red flag to me was she was talking about spending all this money, doing all this, and I was like, first thing I'm thinking is, first of all, how? She didn't care about spending the money. And then I saw her like passing things over, her boyfriend would come in. I don't know, she just gave me the order, red flags, So I went to my boss, actually, she was my boss, and I said, I'm feeling uneasy, something's going to be going on, I don't know what's going on, but I just didn't feel right. Well, needless to say, at the end of the week, an audit was done on her. She was caught stealing. My boss called her boss, called the police, and she ended up getting terminated and was, left in handcuffs. And that was, you don't want to see that happen, but it does happen. Unfortunately, there are people out there that, unfortunately, are gonna steal or embezzle or lie. You can't have those kind of employees working for you, though. That's what you have to know by. You have to be terminated. But the ones the written warning ones, yeah, I've had to have 3 written warnings, and they did have to get fired. That's happened too. But with that being said, sometimes you can help, with the education and stuff like that. So I've dealt with many situations that have been difficult, whether it be customers or employees. And again, I know I always come back to this, but I do believe it is in your approach and how you act. You have to gotta be kind to one another. You can't be just ruthless to one another. And I think that's the end all be all of everything. Communication is key, and you need to talk to people and understand, like I said, where are they coming from? What's going on with them? So, did you want to answer more?
I just had one additional question.
Yes.
So, part of the key process, the key roles of the town administrator is making sure that you and the board are on the same page. How do you learn what the selectmen's expectations are for you in the position? You're brand new, you're coming on board. It's important for you and the selectmen to be on the same page.
Absolutely.
How do you understand that process?
Well, I would hope to have individual meetings with each one, because you can't be unless you're, or even in a setting like this, you could tell me, or I know, for example, my town administrator, he meets with them, he does talk with them, you know, individually, and, you know, get to know what you're looking for. What are you looking for of me? You need to make sure we're on the same page, because I need to make sure that I'm given all the information you need to know. So that's important.
Just one last question.
Yes,
So, I hear, I've been doing this for a long time,
yes.
and within the last few years, I've heard more of the word transparency than I've heard about in the previous 35 years. So could you explain what your views are on that and what it means to you if you were to be the town administrator?
So transparency is, it means to be clear and know exactly what is going on. There should be no behind scenes, no hidden agendas, none of it. You need to be upfront. You need to let the people know you're in a governmental public environment. You need to know, everyone needs to know what's going on. There is no secrets in this kind of industry. Everything is public, it's transparent, and you need to be accountable for everything that you do. You're in the public's eye, you know, so it's very important that you're being honest, clear, and upfront.
Good response, thank you.
Okay, Cameron, any questions you have of us?
Okay, my question is there anything else that you would like, did I answer everything that you're looking, are there any other questions that you need to ask me?
Short of us taking the top of your head off and looking in, I think we've
I
sort
just
of,
want to make sure I didn't miss any questions and that I've answered them. Or if I missed something, maybe I didn't answer it completely, let me know and I'll try to answer it better. I just want to make sure that I answered everything to your, you know, thoroughness.
So,
Mark, anything else?
if I could just ask you one more question.
Absolutely.
If you come up to a problem and you don't know how to proceed, what do you do?
So if I don't know how to proceed, I would maybe call the chair and see what maybe the chair would want me to do. Or I'd call legal. It depends, like what kind of, I guess it depends on what situation it is. Can you give me an example, like what type of situation? Would it be like a legal situation? Would it
Maybe
be like
more
a
procedural, like what would be the best practice here as a town administrator? You know, are there other people that you would want to reach out to outside of this community
Well, I do have a
for
good
guidance?
network, and obviously, you can reach out to other people. I do with being a town accountant, I network.
Yeah.
I call other towns, and I will call certain towns, and if I come across something, I'll be like, hey, I
Yeah.
have this account, how did you set this account up? So I think networking is huge. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily, you gotta be also be able to do your job independently. I feel that's very important.
So you don't
Putting
have
your
any problem-
trust into me, so I should be able to handle these things, especially with something on that type of situation. Obviously, if it's like a huge legal thing, it's very important that I let you know about it and then ask you how would you like me to proceed and ultimately find out that answer. But if it's like just a generalization question, then I would network out.
Do you have any relationship with Mass Municipal in the job that you have?
I do with the town accountant side, again,
Yeah,
yes.
but they do have a lot of training that's available.
They do.
For, people that would be in Greg's world, town administrator.
I'm very big on.
My former role,
Yeah, your former world, well, kinda,
I don't go to those training
no,
seminars anymore.
more.
But you wouldn't be afraid to reach out
I
to
was
someone
gonna say, I
and
wouldn't
admit
even
that-
hesitate to reach out to Greg.
I'd always be available.
I'm not shy.
You wouldn't be afraid to reach out to someone and admit that you don't know how to do something.
Absolutely not. I own it.
Do you have a certain person in mind if there was a difficult management or administrative issue that came up that you would turn to?
Well, like I said, obviously, since you've been here, you'd probably be one of my main ones. Maybe. My town administrator, he's very knowledgeable about a lot of things. He has a lot of, connections even with the legislature and stuff.
Mhm.
That's very important. I'm not afraid to reach out to anybody,
Mhm.
so there's no problem there.
Great.
Okay. I think I've asked all the
Me
questions I
too.
have.
That's all mine.
Okay, well, I can't say to you, in 13 minutes, we're going to have a decision. I don't think so. Obviously, we'll continue to have conversations. We will continue to check references and those sorts of
Oh,
things.
absolutely.
And it's a very important position for us, and we want to make a good choice. And I'm hopeful that you look at our town and put us through the ringer and make sure that this should be the candidate that we make an offer to, that you're absolutely sure.
I will.
Okay.
I will do some on the outside instead
Okay.
of all on the inside, because my computers were like, whoa, town of Barre.
Yeah.
It's had a lot of,
Well, thank you so much.
thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you.
Nice to meet you too. You as well. Will I forget my purse? I'll be like,
Well, don't do that. You'll be in your car and you'll be in a panic.
thank you. It was nice meeting you. I feel like I already know you.
I enjoyed listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.
Bye-bye. So you are the ex officio select
Oh, my
board member.
non-voting member.
Huh?
Our
You're a
non-vote-
non-voting member.
I appreciate the opportunity.
You want to take us off, well, why don't we just recess for a bit of time before we get people back here, and
Yeah, I can use the
maybe for 10 minutes? People can use the restroom or whatever, and Do some further background checking for us?
Yeah, so they do the background investigation, which is a review of the person's financial ability and what their, any criminal records
Yeah.
and such. So any offer that the board would make would be a conditional offer based upon satisfactory background review and investigation.
Well, I mean, I really like to chat with people at the bank.
Yep.
You know, and she did give us some names, and certainly, we could certainly get some insights there.
She's
Yeah,
given
the
us,
very last page.
yep, she's given her references.
Yeah,
And particularly the one in the middle,
yeah.
she mentioned.
Well, of course, whenever they give you your references, they're gonna be the good ones. So I don't know how much in depth Buzz does, but I would, you know, want to have conversations with the current manager in Warren.
And I know that, I recognize the name of the CPA that she lists as her third reference. When I worked in North Reading, there was a partner who did the audits for the town, so they were a very well-established auditing company, and I would say that they're, you know, they're not just a company that comes in and does one community and it's out.
Yeah.
So they're probably someone that'll be worth talking to also.
And she actually provided, separately from those
Yeah.
three references, a letter from the town administrator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty vanilla.
Well, perhaps, I don't know, I'm not
Into
as familiar with those, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, your thoughts?
So, overall, I thought that her answers on any of the questions related to finance, budgeting, transition to the software program were all extremely solid.
Mhm.
I also felt that she had really good responses pertaining to transparency and onboarding. I thought that she did a very good job in those things. Clearly, her strength is finance.
That's not a bad thing in a town,
But we know that the job encompasses
so much more.
general management responsibilities, and the growing function is human resources. I've given some thought to, you know, what do we do with human resources, because to kind of have this new person learn the job responsibility and also be responsible for the HR piece could tend to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, and it's unfair to put that duty and responsibility on Sandy.
Absolutely.
So maybe the solution is a part-time HR person who could really make sure that we don't get behind the eight ball.
Right.
And so, and that would help her, because I didn't feel that her real strength was in the HR personnel side.
Right, I agree. And that's my reluctance. And without us providing the candidate with a very, very, you know, shall we say, robust transition plan, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I would have to be assured that she would have the kind of support that's necessary to manage the issues of concern that we have.
Yep.
Because if this were all just a cakewalk and, you know, we were just saying, oh, you can plug any old person in and they can do the job. We don't want her to be just the person who has, you know, marks time with us. We want there to be a change agent, and we want to give her the strength and the courage to do that. There's no question that if we go in this direction, it means more work for us guys.
Wow.
You know that.
Well, you also want to have someone, and I didn't mention it, and I wish I asked the question, who's going to be committed to the community for a period of time,
Yeah.
and not just here for 2 to 3 years and moving on quickly. I think given her proximity to where she lived and grew up,
In her age.
you know, and I have less of a concern for that than I might with someone who's a very young candidate and very inexperienced. But that's really critical, is that continuity piece.
Well, especially when, you know, the so-called management team is, you know, elected or not, every 3 years. So every year, there's a change, potential change, that's relatively significant.
Yeah.
And so we have to vest in this new person the training and the support that's necessary to help her, be successful.
She did mention in the first interview that she was interested in longevity and looking for consistency.
Yeah. I mean, if we had less personnel concerns, as far as, negotiations, once we wrap up negotiations, which is, as you all know, we're in mediation with both the police and the DPW, we're all set with, we're still in mediation with the police. She has no experience in that, but at least I have a lot of experience in that, and so I can continue to work with,
And that's an
The
area
attorney.
where council is heavily
Yeah.
involved.
yeah, and, another, area where we can, shore it up until she's grown a little in the position. What are your thoughts, Mark?
I don't know. I mean, with me, being on such a short time, I mean, looking through everything and going through all the questions and answers, I mean, I see she has a lot of great qualities and, can take, if she can take hold of it, and she's got to be a strong arm. She has to, you know what I mean? And that has to be, that's an important thing. It can't be a wishy-washy position. It has to be solid. And I mean, I haven't hired, honestly, I've never hired anybody with the position that I think is this important, to be honest with you. And I don't, I mean, I can say it simply, I think we need a very strong person in that chair. And
I would say I don't see her necessarily as wishy-washy. I think, consider the strength for sure. But I wouldn't say she was wishy-washy. From
no, I
from
wouldn't.
those
I wouldn't say that
interviews.
either. I'd say we
Right.
can't have someone that.
Right.
No, it's hard for me to judge being, so new at hiring someone like that. And Maureen, I would say, has the most experience, and
I think if we can work to have her first 90 days heavily supported, very specific on our expectations for her, because she does not have to learn the depth of management of the whole financial stuff. She's got that down pat.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
important.
So, I mean, that we don't have to worry
It's at
about.
least
One
a
big
third of the
piece.
job.
Yeah, that's at least a third of the job she could do in her sleep.
And the budget will be coming up sooner than later.
Yeah.
So the process begins anew as we get into the fall, and it'd be nice to have a TA on board that's at the beginning of that
Yes.
process, rather than being aboard a quarter of the way
Yeah.
through it.
Well, quite frankly, as selectmen, her expertise in the budgeting area gives us like a lot of security, and
Yeah.
that we're not, if we're starting to go down the wrong hole financially, she's gonna be on that. And we're not gonna, whereas Jessica was really strong in the administrative piece, but not so strong in, the financial arm. So, no matter who you hire,
Right, you're
they
gonna
have
want
strengths
to
and
go.
weaknesses, and,
Right.
um,
I mean, honestly, even just considering the HR aspect, I believe, I would have to double check, but I think Rutland was looking at
yes,
hiring
hiring a
HR.
part-timer too.
If it was part-time, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it was part-time or
Part-time.
full-time, because if it was full-time, perhaps regionalization of some sort, but,
Same with Boylston,
Yeah.
who's also looking for a part-time HR person. I pulled up the job description, and I was shocked to see it was 3 pages long for 18-hour-a-week position. I think they need
But
to
that-
be a little bit
But that-
realistic in terms of what the person can
That-
accomplish in
yeah,
a period
yeah.
of time.
but
And-
perhaps
and-
towns could work together.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I mean, and there's no question that we could invest more time and attention through our attorney in
Mhm.
dealing with HR stuff. And in other words, you have the attorney, you say, okay, we're gonna pay you a little more in your retainer, because we want you in some of these early discipline kinds of situations with an employee.
Mhm.
We want you sitting right there. And that will give, a lot of strength to that person. She will say, okay, and learn. Well, don't say that. You can say that, but don't say that. Don't write that. And, make sure that all that.
Go in with the legal confidence.
And because that competency is critical. I mean, because there's nothing scarier than going into, potentially a significant disciplinary hearing with no experience.
I know.
So that's when you say, no, you can have the attorney. I mean, we've got to provide tremendous shoring, and because if we're not willing to do that, I say it's a no vote.
Would you say, in your experience, is it typical to, like, towns this size that you've worked with, is it HR, what is the involvement with the HR? How, are they part-timers, do you have towns this size with full-time HR?
Well,
Programs?
the piece that's kind of missing here is there's generally a second administrative support person who works with Sandy.
Yeah.
We don't have that person.
Definitely.
But that's an area that we should be shoring.
But I also think that since Sandy is fulfilling much of that role right now, I think our problem is solved by bringing that part-time HR expert. Maybe someone who's retired, someone who wants mom's hours and can't commit full-time to the position. I look at it as kind of a risk avoidance thing,
Mhm.
because HR is so set with traps if you miss different deadlines, or you somehow violate some rule or regulation
Right.
out there.
Well, yeah.
It's a position that really does pay for itself in the long run.
Well, and not only that, it's a wonderful teaching tool. Sam?
Is the direction of this town, by the way, thank you for allowing me to ask. Is the direction of this town contingent on this to be amended draft?
I don't think it's totally contingent, but it certainly would be a support that would be great moving forward. I mean, we can't, see, when people think that we're trying to leverage authority, that's when they kind of don't want that. And,
Because I see this and the passing of this very big component
mhm.
in this change in Barre.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. It's one of those things that would be a great asset if we were able to have a town administrator bylaw in place, but we're gonna keep moving forward either way. Whatever.
I'm not saying you won't, I'm just saying that this is something
It's a help.
that's been worked on and thought about it, and initially it was turned down by the table method.
Mhm.
And that would be a big change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
So I don't know if it's premature to sign the thing and say, do more background check. I just want to make sure that we have put together a very, comprehensive structure that allows us to manage personnel in an effective way, because that will be her weakness, I think. I may be shocked and surprised.
But you also mentioned you wanted to review and contact some of our
Yes,
references.
absolutely.
And I don't think there's any issue if holding on a potential offer of employment until you're comfortable with what her references are.
Mhm.
And that's absolutely critical and part of this process.
Yeah.
And that's separate from the background investigation, which is kind of goes into more depth.
Yeah,
I would not hesitate to go through that and at least be prepared to come back and have that conversation
Okay.
on Monday if you haven't completed it.
well, I'm very happy to continue to reach out to some individuals who may not be on her list, but who I would
Yeah.
say know a lot about her, and be able to ascertain that piece, that HR piece that we all worry about.
I mean, I could reach out to the CPA and I could reach out to the town
Would you do-
administrator.
That'd be great.
I don't know him, but I.
Yeah, but
feel
I mean, the thing of it
comfortable
is, he'll feel comfortable talking to you,
Yeah.
because you don't know him.
talking. That's right.
You know what I mean? So,
As this board, we have to try very hard in every way, like you said, to try and not make mistakes on this one.
yeah, oh, absolutely.
Right.
And the problem is, we have so little control over who applies for the job.
Right.
And the challenge is they're just,
Sandy, you have any comments?
Because select board members come and go,
I know.
it's hard to
If-
stay focused on what you're already working, and now you've got somebody new coming in, and everything changes the dynamics, so maybe that,
Well, I'm the next one up, so you'll all have to put signs out for me.
yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you know, the situation is, I concur with you that we have to have some longevity in this group. We have to commit to some, you know, timeframe to work on this, because I would feel terrible, okay, to say, okay, I don't care what I do, because I'm here for 3 months and I'm not here. And I would think that would be terrible. I would recuse myself from the vote if I didn't have any intention of running again, because I just don't think that that would be a fair thing for the people who are here.
I mean, I think that also goes to say, you know, if we hold out for someone who has all of the experience, but, you know, they're 2 years away from retiring.
Yeah. Well, see, they're not going to come here for 2 years.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, Greg came here for a few months.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if she comes, I think she will be here. And we have to, you know, agree that we have huge obligations to make certain that the person is supported in doing the kind of work we want done.
Yep.
And the thing that I like is she doesn't have to learn any of the stuff that could cripple the town immediately. She doesn't have to learn any of that, the recap sheet, the assessing, all that stuff. Think about it. I mean, that could just,
Absolutely.
when we go to town meeting, I am going to have, wow, I'm going to say between, you know, what Ellen and the treasurer will do and so forth, and what this person's capable of doing and managing, we'll be in great shape. Now, she doesn't want to start for at least 30 days. So, you know, that's not a big deal, is it, Greg?
No,
Oh, okay,
not an issue.
okay.
Don't let
So,
my availability in any way affect. what
well, you're kind of
I'm doing.
important, you know.
So.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
You've done a great job for us.
So as far as HR, is that definitely something that is gonna happen, that,
Has to happen.
okay.
It has to happen. I mean, not only training, but somebody who can be in the office when.
Yep.
Because even to do like the first evaluation, people in this community haven't been evaluated in years. And so if we're gonna roll out an evaluation process, you know, and this person's brand new, you know, any kind of support and so forth that we can provide for this individual is critical to the success. And that people understand, if we're putting all this time, effort, and so forth, they're saying, oh, they're serious. They're
Right.
serious.
And the whole thing you mentioned about like job performance evaluations.
Yeah.
Providing notice to the unions
Yes.
because it's a new policy.
Exactly.
And so it's many layers deep, you
Yeah.
know, you think about it, there's a lot of work that needs to
Yeah.
be done, just from a decision you make.
Exactly. And, you know, for example, I think it is the DPW, because we made what did we make a decision about something that they want to impact bargain now? What is it?
Just a discussion about policies in general.
Yeah. Well, and I said from the beginning, you have to involve the people who are going to be impacted by these policies in discussion.
Absolutely.
I have no problem with that, but they're looking to impact bargain it, which is fine. It doesn't really change their working conditions.
Well, at this point, there's nothing to really
Yeah, exactly.
bargain over
Yeah.
because the board has
Policy
just scratched the surface,
Right.
but what they're doing is giving you notice.
Yeah.
I think they picked up on the issue about performance evaluations
Sure.
and said, oh, before you do that, we need a.
And we're happy to engage them in that. I would think that they would like to have the opportunity to get some praise, formal praise, because most of them, let's face it,
Yeah.
are going to have a lot of good things said about them. And we don't have to do any of the, you know, people who are like the town clerk or anybody who's elected. That's not our
Who
problem.
does the performance review, the department head with HR?
Well, it all depends what we impact bargain.
Okay,
But you know, when you think about like performance evaluations, it also involves training of the department
Department
heads so that this person is just simply rubber stamp, everyone's a superstar.
Right.
And this person looks at positions a little bit differently. You know, everyone needs to be on the same page,
Yeah.
and there's actually training that's involved there too.
And when you have a new policy, you have to have training to say, do you understand the policy? Do you know how to implement the policy at your job? I mean, because just throwing out policies, you know, we can do it, but that's not the way it should be done.
Right, here's a book, enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy, yeah. I mean, there should be an, you know, employee handbook, okay? And it shouldn't be anything that's, you know, takes hours and hours to read, but it should be, you know, enough so that people say, oh, okay, if you work at Barre, these are the things, these are the basics.
I think it's a really good plan.
Small
Yeah.
enough to fit in the back of your school agenda?
Sure.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Your whole policy, the back half of your agenda was all policy?
Yeah, well, you had to make sure that every student knows everything about every suspension, just in case maybe so. And the kids would just go, oh, please, and just sign whatever we had in front of them. Am I wrong?
I read it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Oh.
I know.
Cover to cover.
Oh, did you sign it? You read it, yeah.
I get it.
Oh. Well, okay, so I guess we're doing a little more legwork,
Right,
Greg, and maybe you can sort of think, more about how we could structure the support system for HR.
I'm gonna work on that.
Okay. And do you have any idea when we can just say to, maybe DPW can give us a hand if we get a dumpster and just get that room emptied in a day?
Yes.
And I'll be happy to help as well.
Okay.
What's this? I didn't hear you.
We're gonna get the dumpster to clean up those rooms.
Oh, yeah.
And I said,
Yep.
we're probably gonna have to ask DPW to help us,
Yep.
and I said, I'll be happy to help as well. There's some stuff on the third floor that needs to get thrown out, and so on and so forth. And
If
they,
there's anything up there that the library could use.
well,
or youth
I
room or
would
anything
say,
like
let
that,
Joe come in and look.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would just say to you about, when I came in and signed the warrant, so I'm just in my car getting ready to go home, and there's an alarm at the library, burglar alarm. And
That
with
alarm.
with the front door, no, with the front door, and I said, the big doors, and I said, whoa, that's odd. So I go, get in, shut the alarm off, blah, blah, blah. And so then I go up to the front doors, they were unlocked and open, they were just,
In the wind.
yeah.
Oh, my God, Joe will have
So I don't know who was,
He wasn't there,
because,
so-
yeah, but most of them don't even use those doors,
They
ever.
know, people do, because they
So-
put the flag in it.
Oh, well, anyway.
It's a good thing you caught it, because the wind might catch those doors and tear them right from the hinges.
Yeah, so I happened to be, 100 feet from the place, thank God, it wasn't like in the middle of the night. And so I go down there, I said, I can't believe it's the front doors. And I go up there and oh, wow. So then I had Trump's chase around, but Joe Brown showed up, the guy on duty. And he says, under control, Maureen? I said, of course. I said, I think it was just, somebody forgot to lock. It's a hard door to lock.
They have to slam.
Yeah, you have to really, like I'm up there with my foot against, pushing it open. But anyway, so that was my day after I finished up the other thing. So,
All right, so-
you'll give Buzz the marching orders, what he has to
Yeah, I'm
do?
saying right now that the board wants to contact their references.
Yes,
And.
and we're gonna
might still be on the
contact
line, right?
some people, I don't know if he's still on there or not, it kinda looks like he might.
And-
I don't
Yes,
know.
I
Yeah,
am.
was gonna
Yeah,
ask if
he's
he's
still
still with
on
us.
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Buzz, yeah, you've been so quiet, did you fall asleep?
No, I'm just amazed at how well you did, Madam Chair. I thought you folks had conducted a good interview and drilled down quite a bit in her expertise, her background, and that sort of thing.
Well, she certainly demonstrated her work ethic, she was well prepared.
Yep. And I think, what you see is what you're going to get.
Yeah,
Now, in terms of background checks, what MRI does is should you have made a motion as a contingent appointment, contingent on the successful negotiation of a contract, number one, and then us doing the background check, we would ask her not only for the references, the 3 or 4 that she gave in her blue binder here, but others as well. And it's typically our job then to look at the ones she gave us, and then to go further and talk to the police chief or other people in the community that may not be on the list,
right.
to get a handle on the on the candidate in an unbiased way.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to make a firm and final on next Monday,
Monday.
on Monday, and
Monday, all right.
we'll make some overtures, on our own for the next 3 or 4 days, and then Buzz we'll either be at that point ready to say, yeah, we're gonna do it, or finalize things on our next Monday meeting.
All right. Now, again, MRI will do the background for you folks, but you folks, I would suggest you designate a subcommittee and negotiate a contract, or start thinking about negotiating a contract. And in those meetings, you have an opportunity to talk about, what are your expectations about, about staying here for X period of time. Oftentimes, you may want to have a 3-year agreement. I think that's typically what the Mass General Law allows, is a 3-year agreement, unless there's something in a charter, or it couldn't be a bylaw in a charter that would allow something more than that. But that's where you can, talk to the candidate about their expectations for being there, because you're looking for longevity, and you want to probe that very specifically with the candidate in your discussions around the contract.
Well, I certainly, if you said, do I think she's in for the long haul, I would think that is one of her strengths. I don't see her thinking, well, this is just, I'll see how I like it. I think she's committed to at least, give it an absolute best try for longevity. I mean, she's been sort of in the area for most of her life, work life. And so I don't see her, saying, I think I'll go work for the Department of Revenue, or I think I'll go to Florida. I don't think so. But I could be wrong, and I mean, the 3-year contract is something, obviously, we can discuss.
Right, yeah, but that gives you, when you negotiate the contract, the opportunity to have, to probe that issue. The other thing that I'm glad came up was the support for her, and in terms of the, training, HR. There are folks that, do this, HR consulting on a part-time basis. So, if Greg is interested in assisting you, that would be good in some fashion. Or if there are people that can do it on a shared basis with another community, that's wonderful as well. There's no question that a new person coming from a finance background into a general management background is going to need assistance. In fact, I'm sure you folks know of the Small Town Administrators Association, STAM.
Yeah.
I've talked to some of their people about assisting, and they are all about helping folks be successful in smaller communities in your region. That's their whole, purpose for being, is to make sure that there's a lot of mentoring, sharing of information, training, that sort of thing, because it's quite a specialty being a small town administrator.
Okay.
So, there is help, there is mentoring, there are classes out there. In fact, the MMMA, Mass Municipal Managers Association, is running one now. I've spoken at it. That previous years, it's called, it's a workshop for new town managers, new town administrators. And they have classes on budgeting, on HR, on personnel, that sort of thing. So there are opportunities for that.
Okay, well, thank you for your continued patience with us. We continue, hopefully, to make the right decision. And we just want to dot a couple more I's, cross a couple more T's before we, make a firm and final decision. And we absolutely agree, I think, that there needs to be a support package that we put together and that is provided for this new hire if we go in that direction.
Again, I'm happy to help. I'll be on that next Monday as well.
Okay. Anyone else have any other comments?
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
When it comes time to creating a negotiation committee, I've negotiated agreements, so I'd be happy to assist in any way the board sees.
Well, I think we would be happy to have you assist us, even more than assist us.
Yeah. I've been there.
Okay, thank you, Buzz.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a nice.
Good night, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Will we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn? Seconded? We have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.